We have a lot of copies. We have a lot of copies. But this is a great turnout. We're excited because usually it's pretty sparse, but we know why everyone's here. We know what the draw was, but that's okay. We're happy to have people regardless. We're going to start with Mr. Smith and his principal report.
All right, great. Thank you. Good to see everybody. It's been a while.
Oh, you know what, Erin? We're going to do just the last two speakers.
Just the school
Thank
committee.
you so much.
You don't want this on film.
Yeah, we don't have hair and makeup.
All right, again, thank you all for being here. It's been a long winter, and you know, we're all feeling it. And spring's right around the corner, hopefully, although it doesn't seem like it today. I want to start off by thanking the PTO on behalf of the faculty for yesterday's delicious soup lunch. The teachers love when you feed us, and it's always delicious, so thank you for that. Talk a little bit about our Chromebook rollout, which finally occurred after many delays because of weather-related issues and all sorts of things. But we rolled out the devices to our sixth graders a few weeks ago, and I was really thrilled with how smoothly it went. I don't know how many people here have sixth graders, but I don't think anyone waited more than a minute or two to pick up their device. And as soon as all the kids had them, the first day that the entire sixth grade had them, teachers were putting them to use in the classroom. It's excellent. And they're not just using them for word processing, they're really digging in and finding applications that are supporting the curriculum. Again, you would come back to the fact that these are a tool. They're not going to replace the good instruction that's always taking place in Hingham Middle School. They're just a tool to enhance what goes on there. Was a small glitch with the insurance that I'm trying to iron out before our next wave. People were told to get insurance before they got the device, and then found out that you couldn't get the insurance without a serial number. So I'm working with the company to sort that out so that when we do move on to the seventh grade, that they can get their insurance prior to getting the device. But other than that, everything went really smoothly. We have bags for sale. Mentioned Caroline Farris and Lawrence Sioka, who have done a tremendous job supporting this initiative. So we need something for a case. And I looked around and I couldn't find anything at a really good price that met the needs of our kids. So Caroline contacted a Hingham-based company, Gen Shi, and they put these together. And we were able to sell them to the kids for $10, I think, which I think is the sixth graders for $10 because of all the fundraising they've done. We will make them available to everyone in the school once we've exhausted the sixth grade sales. But I was thrilled with how they came out, and the padding is excellent. They're going to protect the devices nicely because students do have to have a case. They can get their own, or they can purchase this, but we feel that it's important that they have something to carry in it just to protect them, because we are giving them to middle school children, and they're not always the most responsible. Let's see. I want to thank HCAM for being here today and for all the events that they've covered recently. They were here to record Mr. McCulloch's mock trial and Rachel Goff's grade 6 Spanish classes recently in our distance learning theater.
And
so,
the parent ed.
What's that?
And the most recent parent education
that's right.
presentation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so,
anxious kids, anxious parents. So there is a direct link to anyone that missed the presentation.
But it's great to have them in here for things other than just concerts and plays, you know, so the families can see the instruction and education that takes place on a regular basis in the classrooms. So thank you very much. I want to remind people that we have MCAS coming up last week of March, first week of April. The dates are on the website. Please check on that so that you are prepared. Remind people that we have a presentation this evening from our department directors to talk about recommendations and leveling, not just at the middle school, but at the entire secondary level from 6th to 12th grade. Much of that information was covered at our program of studies night, so if you were able to be at that, you've heard this once, and it's also available on our website. If you can't make it and just want some more information, look under the important links. But speaking of parent ed, we do need to be careful. I've had conversations with Dr. Gerard McCann. We've had 2 occasions where we've conflicted with high school events. So when we do plan things, we need to try to keep those to Thursday nights as much as possible. I know it's not always possible, but they schedule many of their evening activities for Tuesdays. So
Has that always been the case? That
yes.
They had a specific night? Okay.
And it's not, you know, it's not a perfect system. We have 5 nights and 6 schools in
Yeah,
the
we
district,
just
so they
weren't,
would,
yeah.
but if we can avoid it, we should.
Great.
We have Beauty and the Beast coming up in April, 15th and 16th. Now that's a slight departure from what we've done in the past because our calendar is so full this year. We had to move those performances to a Wednesday and Thursday evening. But the production's coming along great. Ms. Fish and her team have done an amazing job. The kids are all excited. The sets are coming together. I think it's going to be a great performance. And I think one of the things we're most excited about is to have home court advantage for once with the play. Finally be able to have it in our school as opposed to having to go to the high school, who was always very gracious and allowed us to use their space. But it's just so much easier for the team to construct the sets here, and then they don't have to work around the high school drama production. So it's been a real benefit to us. Oh, and I wanted to let you know that we will be hosting a middle school dance for the first time in a long time. I made the mistake of mentioning to Mrs. Farris that my daughter had a dance one Friday night. If Mrs. Farris has an idea, she just runs with it. She said, can we do that? So April 10th, we're going to have a middle school dance open to all students. Well, we're going to have to limit the ticket sales because we can't fit 1,000 kids in the gym. But you'll be seeing more information about that in the coming weeks. And I think that's about it for me. Any questions about anything? I know Dr. Gallo's going to speak a bit about the Chromebooks, but if you have questions now, I can take them. All right? Yes?
Is the word on the street is that the incoming 6th grade is not going
Our plan is to hopefully extend the distribution to 7th grade this year. So even if it's late in the year, so that they have them and we have assigned them and they get a little practice with them. And then hopefully in the fall, circle back to the incoming 6th graders. So that's our plan. Okay?
And it's funded.
And it's funded.
It's fun.
Most importantly.
So
Yes?
that infant-
The current 7th graders will have,
Count them.
yep. We hope to have them in their hands before the end of this year, and they will have them at the start of 8th grade. These devices will be turned in at the end of each academic year. We'll store them over the summer, and students will get the exact same device back when they return in the fall. Yes? If you have the box, that would probably make it easy, but I would imagine at this point not everybody does. So we can work around that. All right. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I have a quick
Yes.
question, I'm sorry. Does this dance need any help from the PTO, or is this just run by the school?
The teachers
like
are gonna
they're
handle
taking
the whole
care of
thing.
it? Okay, all right.
We
so
appreciate the help that the parents always provide, but you do
Yeah.
so much with the socials for the kids.
Yeah.
We thought it'd be good if we took ownership of this from the school point of view.
School-wide dance.
You got it.
Okay. All right, great, thank you. We'll keep this very brief. We just wanted to talk about that there's going to be some openings on the board next year. Julie has volunteered to be the president, so praise Julie.
Just 1 year.
Oh, she is, wait, there's a disclaimer, just 1 year. She's going to be the president for 1 year, so she's looking for a vice president to work with her next year.
Yeah, so you'd work as a VP for 1 year, and then with the idea that you'd be president for 1 year or 2 if you want the next year.
So,
So you spend a long time, you know, it's pretty quick, so.
Yeah, so if any of you are interested or you want to spread the word, Julie is great to work with. You'll have a lot of fun. And Marissa Costello has volunteered to be the treasurer. Yay. So thank you, Marissa. So right now we're looking for a vice president and a secretary. It's not a huge time commitment at all. It's not like at the elementary schools where it involves a lot more time. Pretty much
Yeah.
all the events run by really great volunteers and you just kind of oversee them. So if anybody wants to talk to any of us or knows somebody they want to nominate, let us know. I'd like to thank Liz Squared, Liz Beanfang, and Liz Donahue for all their work this year on hospitality. Yesterday was the luncheon, which Mr. Smith mentioned. They've done many, many events this year. Again, they've run all the events and did an awesome job, so we appreciate Liz and Liz.
We appreciate them, thank you.
We're going to talk about a couple other things, but I think what we're going to do is we're going to let Dr. Gallo and Liza O'Reilly from school committee present on the middle school issues. So, camera, mic for them.
Flag down, Michigan. We're ready for They're gonna start.
Do you want me to stand? Do you want me to? Hi, excuse me. Hi, I'm Liza O'Reilly. I'm a member of the school committee, and this is Dr. Gallo, our superintendent. Just so you're familiar, I have 3 kids in the Hingham Public Schools, a 12th grader, 10th grader, and a 5th grader. So we've been through the middle school, and I'm very aware with my 5th grader that she'll have a very different experience than my older kids. So I've been paying a lot of close attention to what's happening in the middle school, and I'm excited for her new experience she has coming up. So we wanted to update you on a couple of key issues that the school committee and the school department have been addressing recently. And first, the budget process. We've been going through several budget hearings in preparation for town meeting. And when we approached the fiscal 2016 budget process, the school committee looked at a needs-based budget versus a level services budget. And just so you understand, needs are, what are the real needs that our schools are facing, versus level services would be if we just took the budget and looked at what our contractual commitments are, and then what are the regular increases associated with that. So if it's a contract, and then the next year the contract is a 2% increase, put that in. So we tried to address to ourselves, the town, the advisory committee, the selectmen, to show what our real needs are. And that concerns teacher staffing, because we have a continuous growing population of students at the middle school and the high school level. There are emotional needs of our students that are growing. We have facilities needs that are growing as well. And also in the elementary school, looking at some staffing issues there with specialists. So, and we were still catching up from some things from the recession that we hadn't had positions replaced yet, especially with maintenance. So we wanted to share that with everyone so they know where we were coming from. The current status of the budget, it's still evolving, and on March 30th school committee meeting, we will address some additional review of the budget. Currently, the school committee has voted a budget of $45.8 million, which is an increase of 5.44% over last year. The advisory committee and the selectmen have taken a vote on their proposed budget of $45.4 million, which is about a 4.4% increase. So we have a gap of $445,000, and Dr. Gallo and the staff are going to make some recommendations to the school committee on our March 30th meeting of how we can adjust some things, and if we can, how we would close that gap. And then the school committee will take a vote, hopefully, that on which way to go with the recommendation for town meeting. So things are still ongoing, and there are still changes that happen organically and naturally with the school budget. It's always changing. We're dealing with human beings. We have teachers who decide whether to take a leave of absence due to maternity leaves, or retirements come up, or we've had a couple of special education students that were in an out-of-district placement, and they are coming back to be students in the district, and so that changes. So it's just, life is going on, and we're helping these kids as best they can, and these things happen, and Dr. Gallo is very good at keeping track of all of it, and so we keep making it work to what's going to work for the kids and for the town. So as I mentioned, our regular education and our special education costs are up, and fortunately with special education, the advisory committee and the selectmen have been really good about understanding that and keeping those costs in there. No one's demanding reductions in that for any reason. So that has been a very positive part of the process. As we looked at our priorities with the middle school, the staffing here is one of our top priorities, and when I'm finished, Dr. Gallo is going to get into more detail, but we know that we have this 6th grade class and the incoming 5th grade class are the peak in our enrollment currently, and so we need to have class sizes at an appropriate size for those kids, and so that is a very high priority of ours for funding. And then also in the elementary schools, we have with the specialists, we don't have one specialist for each school now. We're still sharing specialists. And in order to create full communities for those schools and to have the curriculum consistent for the kids, we'd like to have, for example, with the gym teachers, Plymouth River, South, and Foster have a gym teacher that's the same one. East has all 3 gym teachers still commuting in and out of the school. We have that situation with music and art as well, and Spanish also. Thank you. And with another big priority for us is with facilities management. We still have a position in maintenance that has not been replaced since the recession hit us a couple of years ago, and we have larger facilities and more going on and still needing to maintain all the buildings. And we also want to add a facilities manager position. Recently we were able to add a custodial manager position, and that really helped bring efficiencies to managing the elementary schools. And we'd like to have the facilities manager to help with overseeing middle school and high school, but also to help John Ferris, our business manager, with the bid process. One very fortunate aspect of the budget is with the capital budget, each year, the school department, like other departments, makes a request for capital improvements. And we were very fortunate that the recommendation is for $988,000. We requested this year $1.3 million, and this is the best allocation that we've received in many years. And we're going to be able to catch up on a lot of capital projects that new rugs in schools. Fortunately, in middle school, we don't have those issues anymore. But, equipment needs that the teachers have. So if we can get this facilities manager, that can help with bidding out all of those projects and overseeing those projects and making sure that the paperwork gets done under the state guidelines. We have to follow the proper bid process, and then to supervise the staff to execute all those projects. So we need people to get things done, and this year we think that again is another priority to make sure we're moving ahead. Let's see, what else do I have? So those are the highlights. Do you have anything else to add? Okay. So if there are any other questions you have for me on the budget part, tried to keep it broad, but Dr. Gallo is going to talk about the specifics of what's proposed for the middle school, because that's her expertise. Oh, yeah.
Just confirm, the last day of school for everybody is June 23rd now, right? Or is that something we're going to get to?
I was going to get to that, but okay, no problem.
Good morning, everyone. Nice to be here, especially on a sunny day. We don't have enough of those recently. As Liza said, we put together a budget that's a needs-based budget, and we put that together by speaking with all of the principals and all of the directors and the resource people and so on, and then we look at those items that they've requested, and at central office put forth a budget that reflects the ones that we think are highest priority. And of course, the number is a growing number. This year we had some additional challenges in that All 6 of our unions negotiated, so we have brand-new contracts, and we had to take all of that into consideration. And we had things like an expiring bus lease, some things that happen periodically that make the number be a bigger number. So at the point where we are right now, as Liza said, is that we have a $445,000 gap remaining from our original request to get to the number that the Board of Selectmen and the Advisory Committee ultimately voted. We've already reduced the budget by over $700,000, and we have this additional $445,000 gap. If you're a regular town meeting attendee, you know that the budget that gets recommended to the town meeting as part of the warrant is the budget that the Advisory Committee has adopted. So we're 445 away from that. With respect to personnel, we did ask for, and Derek collected information from directors, 2.8 new FTEs. Doesn't sound like a lot, and in fact it isn't. But 2.8 is not 2 people and a part of a person. It's pieces of people. In some cases, adding to teachers who now work part-time that would go to full-time. And we're focusing, that 2.8 is mainly focused on the 6th grade into 7th grade group. Because next year's 6th grade is about the same size as this year's 6th grade, but next year's 7th grade is about 50 students more than we now have in 7th grade. So when you look at needs for keeping those class sizes at a reasonable level, then the staffing largely will go there. Now, in the fall, when we asked the directors and the principals to put forth their requests, at the high school and middle school, they're guesstimating at how many people will enroll in 7th grade advanced versus 7th grade upper standard, for example, or how many people will enroll in French versus Spanish. So the 2.8 came from a request that was based upon what all of the directors thought would be the need for the number of sections for next year's 7th grade. In reality, children now, and you as parents, are going through the course selection process. Courses are being selected. A tally of who selects what and how many people comes out. And in early May, usually the first week in May, Ellen Keene, the assistant superintendent, and I meet with Derek, with Paula Gerard McCann, and individually with every single director. And we look at the staffing that we have in the budget. And it may be that in the fall, the thought was we need 4/10 more Spanish teaching and we need 1.0 more math teaching. And in fact, that balance may change a bit based upon what folks have selected. But that level of staffing is still in the budget. It is something that both the school committee and the advisory committee valued as the highest priority. So that isn't going to go anywhere. Exactly how many sections of everything there will be something that we will decide in the spring. Just to give you a sense of perspective, the handout is something that we do every year. We try to keep track of how many of the classes at the secondary level are at 25 or higher. Not that there's any sort of a magic cutoff, but it gives us a metric that we can work from year to year for. So you have the years 12, 13, 13, 14, and the current year 14, 15, and you can see it bounces around a lot. A lot of the reason for the bouncing around is the fact that we do have a lot of choices that folks can take. It's not like the elementary level where you may have 100 youngsters in the 3rd grade, and it's very easy to say, well, 100 youngsters, I can have 5 sections of 20, or 4 sections of 25, and we have to make the judgment that reflects the staffing we have at the time. Here, because there are so many choices, it isn't all that easy to keep class sizes level from one year to the next. But you can see that it does vary. The 6th grade is a particular challenge to try to staff for, in that they work in teams. So adding one teacher at 6th grade often doesn't do you much good. So typically what happens at 6th grade is that as the population has gone up and a little bit down sometimes, but mostly up, it may be higher class sizes for a couple of years till we get to the point where we can add at least 2 teachers for a half team or 4 teachers for a team. So the 6th grade is a little bit different in that sense, and will bounce up and down from year to year. So, certainly our goal at the secondary level is class sizes that are under 25. And actually, if I were to show you an accompanying chart, which goes according to the actual departments, you would see that our average class sizes are 21, 22. And we know, of course, that averages don't tell the whole story. But that tells a little bit less dramatic story than this one. Because on this chart, we're simply looking at core subjects. And core subjects are math, science, social studies, English, and foreign language. There are obviously larger classes in things like chorus, and there also need to be smaller classes in some of the skills-based things. So we look mainly at the core subjects and try to keep track. So could they be better? Yes. But are they what they were a number of years ago, where we had lots of 27, 28, 29? No, they're not. I think we've made good progress. This year and next year always were expected to be peak years. And certainly when we design buildings, we can't design for the peak. When I say we can't, the School Building Authority, Reimbursement Authority, does not design for the peak. And similarly with respect to staffing, there are always going to be those times when we need to catch up a bit to get to a new level. But in general, I think the class sizes are going to be good. We're especially wanting to take care of 6 to 7, because it's always where the bump is. And that's true in terms of textbooks and so on. If you've never had a class any bigger than 350 and all of a sudden you're going to have a class that's 380, then we need to buy books and materials and other things for those classes. I would say also there is some additional FTE help, some additional hours per week, if you will, for the language lab here. We don't have a full-time language person, and certainly we have a technology manager in the school, but she can't spend all of her time in the language lab. So we're adding some hours to the current language lab person so she can spend more time here. So that would be another benefit in this building. So I'd be glad to answer any questions if you have them about the staffing. But you folks shouldn't worry, because your priority was one recognized by all the people voting. Some of the other priorities were a little at different opinions about need. I would say that as the advisory committee makes its decisions, they tend to look at needs-based, at level services as being kind of the philosophy of the framework, and they also pay a lot of attention to fairness and equity among the other departments. So while there may be times that we have a greater need, and I think they recognize that our needs can be greater and different than other departments, there still is the want to use the town resources in an equitable way across all the departments. Anything? Thank you.
Just to clarify, did you say that the 5th grade class moving in is just as
Is
large?
about the same size as this, yeah. And that's a class, the current 6th grade has been a big class all the way along. We used to call it the Murphy's Law. Every month when I would do enrollment, I'd say, you'll never believe, in that grade level there's another child. But the class that's currently in the 5th grade is now the same size. And that tends to happen. In Hingham, we enroll a lot of kids early on, kindergarten, 1st grade, and they tend to stay with us, and new families move in, and they also bring some older children as well. So the ratio from one grade to the other is always 1 point something, and always has been in Hingham, which means that we grow a little bit every year.
Have you seen a lot of students now that more schools are offering middle school, like Archbishop William?
Yes.
Have you seen?
We haven't seen that drop off. We've always felt that probably there won't be more children who go to private school than ever did, but that they will go earlier because people will be concerned about making sure there's a space and that they're not shut out. But I can't say that that's been a big impact as we thought it might be, especially this year. Of course, there's the appeal of the new building and.
How many current students are in the 6th grade?
This 380, at the moment, it started with 388, it may be 384. I didn't bring my sheet with me, but it's 384 to 388 it's been all of this year. That's a big number. probably the same number. It's right now 384, so could some youngsters go off to private school in 6th grade? Maybe not in 6th grade, but it's about the same size.
And then does it drop off after that, the next year?
Yeah, although the drop-off isn't significant. The classes below that are more like 330, 340. And we're having a particular problem right now in trying to predict what's going to happen with kindergarten and grade 1. Over the last several years, we've enrolled as many as 60 additional children in grade 1 than we had in kindergarten. And that's largely because children have gone to kindergarten programs elsewhere. So now that we're going to have a full-day program, which we're very excited about, we're hoping that we will have a better way to predict our overall elementary, because those children will, the ones that are coming anyway, will come in kindergarten and remain.
What would the ideal class size in the core subjects? Is it 20, you say 20?
Well, I said the average.
21.
It's 21 to 22. Each department, we keep track of it by department. Every department is different. The smallest average is in foreign language, although some of the biggest extremes are there. And that is because we offer multiple languages, number one, and number two, the choices happen late. When we only offered Spanish at the elementary, which we now do, and only one language at the middle school, you can make wonderfully even class sizes. But when you don't know who's going to take what, that's a real challenge. So it's the smallest average, because we have multiple levels, and but it may have the biggest extremes. Okay, thank you.
So I'll finish up a couple things, and then I'll let Dot talk a little bit more about the Chromebooks. So Dot mentioned full-day kindergarten. The school committee has been looking at bringing full-day kindergarten to Hingham for many, many, many years. And the last committee review was 2008, and the recommendation was for full-day kindergarten. But then we had the recession, and we're looking for space, and so we have the space, and we're climbing out of the recession, and how do we make this work? And so we recognized, the school committee started working on this last year, and we worked really hard at how can we put together the finances to fund this. And we went through various recommendations as the budget process began, and we also did extra work. And so we looked at some state grants originally, what would we be eligible for, and we looked at tuition as well. We also, one of our main objectives with full-day kindergarten was that it be open to all. Many towns that offer full-day kindergarten and that charge tuition have a lottery system, and because Hingham has the space and we wanted to have as many children able to attend as possible, that was a key objective, is that anyone could attend that wanted to attend. So where we are as of now, we are piloting the financial plan that we will have a sliding scale tuition, and the max amount is $3,500 a year. We came to this number by looking at what do we charge for the integrated kindergarten program for a model student, and what was that tuition, which was around $3,100. What did students pay who were doing the Kids in Action wraparound program for a half day, 5 days a week, and that was about $4,000. We did look at what did private kindergarten programs pay. We looked at what our other benchmark towns, what people were paying. And so we pooled all these numbers together, and then we looked at, then the final element is we did a survey in town, and we tried to reach out to as many parents at that age as possible to get a sense of, if this is the tuition and this is the income level that you would pay, where would you fall on this sliding scale? And so once we gathered all this information and we got a sense of where people, what they would be able to afford, that's how we came to the $3,500, and we feel it's a very fair price, but also with a sliding scale that if you happen to be unemployed, if you are, struggling, if you have a low income, your child will not pay tuition. If you have twins, first child would pay the full rate of what your income says that you would pay, and the second child would pay half. So with a sliding scale, we want to make it as agreeable as possible to get as many students as we can into the program. So, and also the teachers are very excited about having this program to get the kids into kindergarten for a full day. Not so much from, yes, there are many more academic demands, as I'm sure all of you, you're not that far out from the elementary program. But we want the kids to have the social experience and to have the teachers helping them with directed play, getting them into the routine of the day of going to lunch, going to gym, going to art. And so that come first grade, they know the routine, they know their classmates, and they can learn that much more, that much faster. So we're really excited about starting this next year. And enrollment is open now. So anyone out there, if you know of someone with an incoming kindergartner, please have them go to their neighborhood school and fill out their enrollment plan.
So there's another informational session tonight. Tonight here at 7, particularly for those folks who are perhaps undecided, not sure about how to fill out the application and so on. We had one on Tuesday morning at our office. We had 15 or 20 people. It went very well. People appreciated having the opportunity. So if you know anyone in that category, tonight here, library, 7 o'clock.
And I know there was a question about makeup days. Just to reiterate, the school committee had its final vote, and the teachers are all on board. We have to add 7 snow days, so the 5 that are built into the calendar, and then adding June 23rd, with Tuesday, June 23rd is sort of the 6th day on the end of the calendar, and then Good Friday will be an early release day, the 2-hour early release, and so that makes up our 7 days that we had to fill in. You can correct me if the commissioner of the state made a recommendation that he would consider a waiver if we had up to 8 days starting, and so we had voted to apply for a waiver, and we rescinded that vote based on the recommendation. And also some surrounding towns, Braintree, Hull, Quincy, who had even more days than us and were making up more days on Saturdays, they were denied their waiver. And so we decided, okay, we'll just leave it as it is. And yeah.
I saw on the news that some towns were looking into the possibility of maybe having 1 week in March. Would Hingham ever look into that, and instead of having the 2 weeks, given the Northeast winters,
We briefly talked about that at our last meeting, and we are reviewing the calendar again. One of the challenges with switching to a March is if the whole state changed to that type of schedule, it would be much easier to consider that change. But if Hingham's switching to March, and then we have staff who's opposite, or if we're February, April, and another town switches to March, and then we have staff whose kids are on the March schedule, it presents a challenge. And so we are looking at the calendar earlier than we have in the past, and also to consider, what happens if this happens again? It is a 100-year, once in a lifetime event, but we've had a lot of things that have been once in a lifetime that have happened over multiple years recently. So.
The learning in June is so, so different than
Yeah.
what happens in March.
Yeah.
It's a lot different, I think it absolutely rewarding, should anybody go to the powers that be in the state.
Yeah.
I think especially in this part of the country.
Yeah. And another challenge for next year that we'll talk about is that Labor Day is very late next year. And so, this coming year, yeah. And so that will push even the 185th day later in June than it is now. So do we think about starting prior to Labor Day to move the calendar ahead? And so those are some of the challenges of that we have to address. And every year the calendar changes, and so.
And that varies for a school district too, doesn't it? If they start before Labor Day or after?
Mhm. Yes, it does, yeah.
What about putting time on it at the end of the day? I know some other friends, I think that's what they ended up doing, like 25 minutes at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, that has not been until last week when the commissioner came out with kind of a new look at how he would consider waivers. Minutes and hours added at the end of the day and then bundled together to make a day for makeup time was something that could be done in this state many years ago. The current commissioner has said 180 days, there's 180 days, and you can't bundle. The other kind of thing that you hear some communities exploring, and I think we will explore it as well, is things that they call blizzard bags or electronic learning and so on. And so the commissioner has left open an opportunity for people to develop that kind of plan. And I think it's worth our looking into. But you then have people that have to do the planning and be paid to do that. And you have to develop a plan that can work for everyone. And I think you can imagine that if you're teaching an AP course, and a lot of our AP teachers did this, they communicated with their kids over the snow days. They worked on assignments. So you can imagine that working well for a certain population. But for other children that need support or that need motivation or whatever, it really is hard to come up with things that, in the commissioner's words, are the equivalent of being in school. That's a pretty high standard to meet. But I think we're going to hear more discussion about that. But in this state, we've been very, very limited. The first waiver actually was granted yesterday of a day, and it was to Hull, who absolutely deserved this. They put forth a waiver request that was amazing. They had 11 days off. They had aerial views of the peninsula, the fact that they had times when no roads were open, let alone schools were open. They already are going 2 Saturdays and a Good Friday, and still not meeting the 180-day requirement. They were going to June 27th or something like that. So the commissioner did grant them a 1-day waiver, which means they still have to do the 2 Saturdays and they still have to do the Good Friday, but they will get out now on the 24th. So.
It was a class activity that was.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't a vote or anything along those lines. Yeah, no, it was
Yeah.
a class. They had read some articles in class, and it evolved into something, an extension to the home, so parents could have a discussion with their kids.
I mean,
A handful of teachers.
we do have to look at the whole calendar, and as Liza said, it depends upon you whether you think this is a one-time event that may never occur again, and should we disrupt everything for a one-time event, or if it's the beginning of a new pattern, heaven forbid that be the case. When we look at the calendar, we do have to look at it with the teachers union. They're part of our planning of the calendar each year, and typically I put forth a draft, send it to them, they review it, they may make a comment or a suggestion, it goes to the school committee to be voted. But we need to start looking earlier this year. And when I say look at the whole calendar, I mean things like, what about Good Friday? Is that something that should be simply taken out of the calendar? It isn't a holiday in a lot of places. Other folks would say no, absolutely, that should stay where it is. When we look at the March week, we net gain by doing March over February and April 3 days. So is that the price you want to pay to get 3 days? Another concern for us has always been in Hingham, you all know, and maybe some of you participates because I saw the cars in the parking lot, we have a lot of skiers. We have a lot of people who have timeshares, who go skiing, and one concern we would have is if March is no longer vacation, will people change their plans, or will the skiers still go skiing and kids not be in school over that? So there's really a lot to think about, and maybe this is a good year to think about it in that Labor Day is so late, and the current 180th day of school, if we did things like we always have, would be June 20th. That's not a lot of leeway for having 5 snow days built in. So you'll hear more about that, that discussion, but it has a lot of components to it. Well, that's it. Over the last years, well, there are a lot of people who would tell you that Doc Gallo never calls snow days. I mean, there are people that believe that. That's not true. And we all, around the South Shore, we keep track we sit in our beds with our laptops and talk to each other about what are you going to do, what are you going to do. People have different situations. We have towns that have flooding issues. We have Marshfield and Situate and Hull have flooding. Cohasset and Norwell often have power outages that we don't. So our decisions are all individual. It's not like we gang up and decide this is what we're going to do. But we have not had, a blizzard of 78. That was a lot of snow days. I can remember that. We've had maybe beyond blizzard of 78, I can only recall 1 year since then that we've ever needed to use the 5 snow days, and never more than that. So you balance that with, but what if the same thing happened again next year? Not easy decision making.
I'm just clarifying, is that week in April still a whole week off?
Yes, it is. Yes. Yep. Our decision making did not involve April. There were 2 things that seemed to be good consensus both among parents and school committee and also with the unit, and that was that we shouldn't touch April. The arrangements that people make well in advance, the costs that are involved, and so on. We said no. The other thing that was good consensus was that Good Friday was a better day than Saturdays. So. And that doesn't mean there was a majority on any of those, but good consensus in both groups.
Don't count for being absent, correct?
Excuse me?
If schools, you know how there's a recommended number of days students can be absent until they get a letter home?
Well, I think you're thinking of the high school. Only the high school has an attendance policy that impacts grade or credit. So, no, snow days wouldn't count. Snow days for kids are as if nobody was there. We make up the entire day.
I'd just like to add, if anyone wants to give us your thoughts, please share them with us. There's the email address for the school committee is on the website, but we welcome to hear what you think. So as we make our considerations. And then that brings me to the last issue that we wanted to share with middle school is about the Chromebooks. And I'd like to add, I have a real passion for developing our technology in schools and to make sure it's balanced with what's appropriate of what are the opportunities with using a device versus we still need to have interaction and conversation, and we don't want it to overwhelm us, but we're really excited about the opportunities with the middle school, and because of the budget from the building construction, that's how we were able to get these Chromebooks. And it's a pilot for our district, and the high school teachers are being very entrepreneurial with the resources that they have, and we're watching what's going on in the high school because we know when these kids very soon get into the high school, they're going to have this new way of learning, and we're going to keep it moving forward. So as a school committee, this is something we're really excited about. And I know Dot, that we knew we had some questions from the middle school community more about the Chromebooks. And so we wanted her to share with you. But we even accelerated what we're doing here because the teachers were on board and were excited about it, and the staff was excited about it, and that makes us excited, a little nervous, because we got to keep up the pace, but the school committee is ready to do that. Dot's group and Derek's group are ready to do that. But we also want to keep it balanced so that we do it the right way for the kids and the parents and everyone, so everyone learns the best they can learn. So I'm going to turn that over to Dot.
Thanks. I think that someone already asked the question that probably has prompted other questions, and that is about the funding, because there was some question at the beginning about whether or not the school building authority reimbursement money could fund 3 years worth, 3 grades of Chromebooks. But in fact, they can. As part of the school building authority formula for the dollars that they are willing to reimburse schools for, they have a per student allocation for technology. So it's not as if you can say, well, we want to have a language lab, we want to have 3 other kinds of labs, we want to have some iPads in the science labs, and make a list, and then put that in for reimbursement. With respect to technology, the reimbursement is a per student number, so it's a fixed number. And so when we were first building the technology plan here, we knew that in addition to all the other things that budget had to include, the technology budget, infrastructure items, and so on, we knew that we could fund 2 years' worth of Chromebooks from that. And so we, at the same time, built into our capital budget a request for a 3rd year's worth, knowing that after those 3 years, then the town each year, if we want to continue, has got to pick up a cost of $90,000 to $100,000 a year for each successive class. However, many of you are probably aware that the project is well under budget. It's under budget for a number of reasons. Interest rates were very low. The bid for construction came in at much less than what was wanted, and we've had very efficient management of that project. So in fact, as we close or begin to close out the project this spring, we have a contingency, a large contingency as a matter of fact, because we've had very few change orders in the project. And so that large contingency isn't a pile of money that we can give back. It's not set aside in a bank or anything anywhere. It just means less money that the town has to borrow. So that's the savings for the town. But as we are nearing the end of the project, and we now know that most of the unknowns are now known. There aren't things lurking under the ground that we don't know about. There aren't conditions with the building that need major reconsideration. That the building committee has been willing to look at going back to fill the needs, the real needs that we have that are in line with the goals of the project. So the building committee has funded the 3rd year of the Chromebooks with contingency. What is it? Contingency money. So we now have the 6th grade Chromebooks already in place. For the current 7th graders, as Derek said, in the spring, they will get Chromebooks and therefore be able to use them in their 8th grade year. And there is money to buy Chromebooks for the 6th graders to hand those out for the beginning of next year. So all 3 grades in this building next year will have Chromebooks. Well, what happens after that? Well, I'm always a little reluctant to predict very far out with technology. 3 years is kind of a long way out. But at this time, as we envision it, as we approach the new class coming in, the current 4th graders coming in, and thinking how we will fund their things, our thought at this point is that 3 years of use is probably about what we can expect when we give Chromebooks to middle schoolers who hop on the bus every day and bring them back and forth to home and bang them on the desk and throw them in the corner when they're coming to lunch or whatever it is they do. 3 years may be it. These are inexpensive devices, although very, very useful and provide a lot of stuff from the cloud. So that's what we're thinking. However, if it turns out that perhaps there's another year of life left in the ones that the next year's eighth graders will get, maybe those can recycle back for a couple of years to buy us a little bit more time, but that ultimately the town will need to decide with us about how we should go forward from then on. And there are two ways we could do it. We can simply buy new Chromebooks each year, 300 plus kids times $300 for the Chromebook, round figures. So that's, $100,000 in the capital, and hope that we get that every year. The other thing that we could do is we could enter into a lease plan, and that's something that's under consideration. The difference is, same cost, but the difference is that the lease plan would come out of the operating budget. That's just the way municipal finance works. So that would be an operating expense every year, whereas the capital budget is not totally within our control on the one hand, on the other doesn't compete for operating needs, other operating needs such as the other one does. Our intent all along was not to hand out the Chromebooks on the first day of school. Those of you who've been in this building throughout this year know how much time the staff in this building has had to spend on training for all the other stuff that's here. And that staff means the support staff, the custodians as well, and the administration, as well as classroom teachers, learning to use the language lab, learning to use all of the security stuff and the many cameras and all of that. Was just too overwhelming to think that we could do a good job of handing those out in addition at the beginning of the year. And that's why the plan was to wait. Liza said we're doing it even faster. We had originally thought we'll roll it out 1 year at a time. This year's 6th grade, then next year's 6th grade the following year, and do it over a 3-year period of time. And in fact, all of these Chromebooks really will be out within 1 year's period of time. We've expended a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money on training, providing training. Some of it training provided by teachers who are just really excited about the idea. And I'm really proud of the fact that when we first started talking about a one-to-one initiative being part of the middle school project, there were towns around us who were simply we're buying iPads for everybody. And not with planning, not with design, not with rationale, just here they are. And some of those communities are now looking at whether or not the iPad was the right thing. Well, it is the right tool, depending on what you want to do. So, using iPads in our science labs is essential because the apps and the connectivity with some of the probes and so on that we use. So it is appropriate to use iPads in some places, but we thought for the goals that we had, and I say the goals that we had because we had goals, and not everybody bought devices with that in mind. So we left the decision in the hands of the educators about which way we should go, and I was surprised actually, given that 2 towns near us had just bought iPads for all their middle schoolers. But we weren't swayed by that, and they made a great decision, and I think kids are going to benefit. And teachers jumping on board with all the other things we asked them to do was an extra bonus. Megan. How much they're used? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that we need to publicize more as we move forward what they're doing in the classroom, and whether that's through video or HCAM coming in, or just newsletters, class newsletters, and so on, because it is important for people to understand how much we're using them. Certainly not everybody is using one all day, every day. I think we want to track what subjects are they most appropriate for. My guess is that science will be doing the iPad thing, probably not as much in math right now, but certainly in social studies and foreign language and English, there'll be heavy use. But we need to get that information out. We need to share with parents.
Can you give us some feedback of those of you whose kids have the Chromebook, or that your observations? How's it been going?
Personally, my son, I think, is the best thing for him because he can work on his assignment at
school and then come home and
Mhm.
finish it. So sometimes he has to carry a flash drive around, or he's like, oh, I forgot it at home. It's with him in the cloud or whatever. And it's awesome because it takes the worry off on my side that
Right.
he's getting it done. I'm giving him more independence to be responsible for his work, which has made him grow. So I think that's important.
And the ability of the teacher and the student to communicate, whether at home or at school. Gotcha.
I share Marissa's, I've been totally impressed. From day one, he came in and my husband and I were laughing like, you just walked in with a laptop. And how, but there was a great sense of ownership, the immediate incorporation into virtually every class, the electronic submission of assignments. For my child, the getting away from the messy handwriting and being able to type poetry notebooks and submit those, the interactive editing was so reflective of the workplace that I thought, this is fabulous. And as a side note, at almost like the perfect timing, the elementary computer teacher issues to all the elementary parents, this is the keyboarding exercises that we do, which to me showed a seamless push that this is the way we're moving. So the earlier our children can be doing the keyboarding exercises on a digital program at home, the more ready they're going to be coming into the middle school.
Right. And I also think that just the other day, since we are going to have more specialists in the building, in other words, a Spanish, only at elementary, Spanish, art, music, PE, library meter, and computer teacher in each building, we can be more flexible about how we schedule them. And one of the things that we want to do is to provide a little additional computer time beyond one lesson per cycle at the third grade level. And so we'll have to change some of the other scheduling around just to accommodate that introduction to keyboarding. What we can't provide for keyboarding is the practice. We don't have that kind of time, but we can provide the resources, we can provide ways that you can go online, we can provide kids learning the basic finger positions and so on. We can't provide the practice, but if we can do that, more of that earlier, and those teachers have really jumped on board, because there's the additional motivation from them in that we have PARC, maybe, or some sort of electronic testing is going to be coming down the line, and so they want to get kids ready for that as well. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And, my friend.